Unsurprisingly, Otto Wallin has called out Tyson Fury. He says he wants the rematch with him in December. He's happy to be his dance partner. Michael Hunter has also called out Tyson Fury, said he's willing to fight for free. That would also be a rematch because, of course, they did fight in the amateurs, and Michael Hunter insists that he was robbed in that amateur fight. Lucas Browne has also called out Tyson Fury, said he'd be more than willing to step in to fight him in December. But the front runner at the moment, I'll come on to Tony Bellew in a second, but the front runner at the moment is Agit Kabayel. Now, Kabayel is an undefeated German heavyweight of Turkish extraction, 28 years of age. He's currently 20-0 with 13 knockouts. He only has the win over Derek Chisora on his record as anything credible. Apart from that, he hasn't beaten anybody of note before or since. But I believe he does have a fairly decent ranking with the WBC, so you can't really grumble if Tyson Fury decides to pick this guy as a voluntary defense from a technical point of view. I say technical because it's not like the WBC would have to, out of the blue, give this guy a top 15 ranking because he already has a top 15 ranking last time I checked. So technically speaking, per the WBC rules, if it's a voluntary defense, you can't grumble if Tyson Fury picks somebody who's already in the WBC top 15. So it is what it is. Now, as far as Tony Bellew, he did an interview the other day where he said, why not throw Dubois in with Tyson Fury? Personally, I don't think Bellew was being serious. I think he was trying to have a dig at Frank Warren. Everybody knows that Bellew and Frank Warren are not exactly the best of friends. And Frank Warren was saying that Dylan White should basically abandon his fight, the first fight with Alexander Povetkin, and fight Daniel Dubois instead. And that would make no sense for Dylan White to do that. And nor would it make sense for Tyson Fury to fight Daniel Dubois at this point. But again, I think Tony Bellew was trying to give Frank Warren a taste of his own medicine. And if Frank Warren can make ridiculous, claims or say ridiculous things in terms of, Dylan White should forget about fighting Povetkin, a former world champion, in a final eliminator, and actually a fight for the interim WBC world title. He should forget about that and instead fight Daniel Dubois. If Warren can say such ridiculous things, I think Tony Bellew is thinking, well, I'll say some ridiculous things, give him a taste of his own medicine. Now, Otto Wallin, as we know, lost to Tyson Fury. And it was a decisive loss, especially when you watch the fight back. I say decisive in terms of on the cards. What wasn't decisive was the fact that Tyson Fury received a very, very bad cut over his right eye in that fight. And had he not been Tyson Fury, and had he not been on the eve of a big rematch with Deontay Wilder, with all the money involved, then the fight might have got stopped on a TKO and Tyson Fury could have lost. But so he was fortunate in that aspect, the fact that they let it go on with such a terrible cut. But given the fact that the Wallin fight would be a rematch, and the fact that he was able to get certain things done, he was able to cut Tyson Fury's eye, I'd be surprised if his team would want to go there again. Not that they're afraid of Otto Wallin. He beat Otto Wallin fair and square, okay? Aside from the controversy over the cut, he beat him on points fair and square. And he's the better fighter than Otto Wallin. But they don't want to repeat. They're probably looking at it like, well, Wallin might be one of those guys who's always going to be awkward. And even though he's not going to beat Tyson, he might be able to cut him again or just do something in there whereby Tyson doesn't look particularly great. So I'd be surprised. And again, it's a rematch. How many people would really want to see this rematch? Otto Wallin is not one of the elite heavyweights. He's not one of the glamour names in the division. So I don't think there'd be too much interest in that fight from a, entertainment perspective. The first fight wasn't a horrible fight, but it wasn't a particularly great fight. So yeah, I'd be surprised if it's Wallin. Michael Hunter, I'd be even more surprised if Team Fury picked him. Now, Hunter doesn't believe that Team Fury will pick him. And he said the same thing for the Anthony Joshua fight when they were looking to get Anthony Joshua an opponent after Jerome Miller failed them PED tests. And it was between Michael Hunter and Andy Ruiz. I think there was somebody else as well. the Don King heavyweight. Is it Trevor Bryan? Yeah, Trevor Bryan. They went with Andy Ruiz in the end. Michael Hunter at the time was saying they ain't going to pick me. They know I'm too dangerous. He's saying the same thing now with Tyson Fury. And to be honest with you, I agree with him. I know there's a bunch of Fury fanboys in the comment section of this Seconds Out interview saying Michael Hunter's talking rubbish and whatever. He better pick up the phone if Tyson Fury calls him. Guess what? Tyson Fury's not going to call him. How about that? All the Tyson Fury fans, Tyson's not going to call Michael Hunter. And I'm not saying that Michael Hunter is definitely going to beat Tyson Fury. I'm just telling you that Tyson Fury knows. He's a smart guy. He knows boxing and he knows how dangerous Michael Hunter is. His team know how dangerous Michael Hunter is. And I just do not see them picking this guy when he's got the Anthony Joshua fight right around the corner. He's going to pick somebody relatively safe. I'm sure he is. If I'm wrong, I'll be more than happy to hold my hands up and give Tyson Fury all the credit in the world for taking on Michael Hunter, but I just don't see it. Now, as far as Lucas Browne, I'll come back to the Michael Hunter thing in just a sec, but as far as Lucas Browne, that would be by far and away the worst pick of all these potential opponents. I can't imagine there's many people out there who would want to see Lucas Browne fight Tyson Fury. Lucas Browne got stopped by Dave Allen. We can't put this guy in with Tyson Fury. What is Lucas Browne ranked at the moment? It would be an absolute scandal. And the WBC have done some scandalous things over the years. They've also done some very good things. I'll give them their credit where it's due. But among the scandalous things they've done, this might be right up there with the top if they gave Lucas Browne a top 15 ranking just so he could face Tyson Fury. That would be terrible. So let's hope and pray that that don't happen. Nothing against Lucas Browne, but the guy looks like a completely washed up fighter. Agit Kabayel, again, you wouldn't really complain too much from a technical point of view. He's already in the top 15. He's unbeaten. He does have a win over Chisora, even though it was a pretty close win and it was a terribly boring fight. That might be the most boring fight I've ever seen Derek Chisora in. It was horribly boring. Agit Kabayel ran around the ring and jabbed and moved and won a decision. That's what it was. How would Tyson Fury approach an Agit Kabayel fight? Would he try and put it on him? Kabayel, if he decides to move incessantly the way he did against Derek Chisora, would that cause Tyson Fury some issues? But if you look at Kabayel's weight, he weighed 237 versus Chisora. Most of his fights is in the mid 230s. So he's relatively light for a modern day heavyweight. In his mid 230s. He's only 6'3", so he's not particularly tall. So I don't know. From what I've seen of Kabayel, I don't think he could give Fury that many issues, but you never know. If he moves a lot, maybe Fury will find it difficult to pin him down. But the pick for me, from a fan perspective and a credibility perspective, would have to be Michael Hunter. That has to be the guy if you're looking for credibility, resume, and entertainment. I think that's the fight. But I think that, as most people are saying, Agit Kabayel's probably the most likely to get it. Would I put it past Tyson Fury taking on a Lucas Browne or an Otto Wallin again? I wouldn't put it past him because Tyson Fury is an excellent, excellent fighter, as we all know by now. But he's not, in my opinion, the kind of fighter to take on all comers. Tyson Fury is more like a Mayweather type fighter who also was excellent, obviously. But Mayweather would pick his battles carefully. He would pick the right fights at the right time. And of course, he did beat some fantastic fighters, Mayweather. But he wasn't a guy who just said, okay, I'll fight all the best out there back to back to back to back to back to back consecutively, one after the other, because I'm that good. That was never Floyd Mayweather. That was Muhammad Ali. He was like that, but Mayweather wasn't like that. Mayweather was like, okay, I'll fight this guy because his style suits me. Then I'll retire, quote unquote, for a year or two. I'll wait to see what happens and let these guys beat each other up. Then when I see certain weaknesses in whoever's at the top at the moment. I'll come out of retirement and I'll fight him, that specific style. Then I'll retire. This is what Mayweather did. And to me, Tyson Fury is similar to that because, you see, as good as Mayweather was, and he was a great, great fighter, he understood that boxing is a numbers game. It doesn't matter how great you are. If you fight everybody, back to back to back champions and contenders and all the top guys out there, you're going to lose eventually. You're not going to stay undefeated. Mayweather understood that, which is why he managed his career the way that he did. And Tyson Fury, in my view, understands that as well. That's why he's not trying to just take on everybody there is. He's picking specific fights at specific times against very good fighters. Let's not get it twisted. Very good fighters. But in between those very good fighters, he doesn't like to take on all the dangerous, hungry contenders. He likes to pick some easier, safer options before he then goes in and takes another massive risk against one of the champions, right? This is how Tyson Fury has been. So I expect that to continue. I hope I'm wrong. And if I am wrong, I'm happy to put my hands up and say, well, Tyson Fury showed that he's now willing to fight anybody at any time, and he's looking to run through the entire division like Mike Tyson when he was in his prime. Mike Tyson in his prime fought everybody he was supposed to fight. Everybody. The only names that, Mike Tyson was linked to in the 80s. And people said, oh, he should have fought him, I mean, Tim Witherspoon, but Witherspoon was stopped by Bone Crusher Smith in a rematch, or else it would have been Witherspoon fighting Mike Tyson rather than Bone Crusher Smith. So he just couldn't get himself back into a position. George Foreman, but I mean, George Foreman was kind of like a novelty in the 80s. And even though he was calling Mike Tyson out, I've never really felt that George Foreman stood much of a chance. And I never felt that Mike Tyson was worried about George Foreman at all. And who else? I mean, Razor Ruddock, but he eventually fought Razor Ruddock after he lost to Buster Douglas. A couple fights later, he fought Razor Ruddock. Holyfield, obviously, he was supposed to fight him, but lost to Douglas and so on and so forth. So anyway, let me not get distracted. But bottom line is, long story short, Mike Tyson fought everybody he was supposed to fight. He was trying to beat everybody in his path in the mid to late 80s. Tyson Fury, the namesake, I don't think he's that kind of heavyweight. As fantastic a fighter as he is, I don't think he wants to take... I think he wants to do the Mayweather thing where he creates this mystique that he's invincible. I think that's what Tyson... And I've been on record as saying this many times. No fighter is invincible. I've never seen an invincible fighter. I've seen fighters who have been made to look invincible. Maybe they're in a weak division, or maybe they're picking the right fights at the right time and they're very strategic. But I've never seen a fighter who I truly believed this guy cannot be beaten. I've never seen it. And that includes Tyson Fury right now at heavyweight. So anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comments below about all the potential opponents for Tyson Fury. Will it be Michael Hunter? Will it be Lucas Browne? Will it be Otto Wallin? Will it be Agit Kabayel? Or even the wild card, Daniel Dubois? I can't see that happening at all. And as I say, I think Tony Bellew was just giving Frank Warren a taste of his own medicine. Before I go, most of you know I'm not a particularly big fan of Carl Froch. Although after he retired, Carl Froch has kind of become a bit of a troll. Maybe he always was a troll, but I never really found him that entertaining as a character when he was fighting. But since he's retired, I actually find Carl Froch pretty entertaining as a character. He winds people up and all that kind of stuff. I find him quite entertaining. And this dodgy looking thumbnail aside, looks like he's making some suspect Skype call here. Dodgy looking thumbnail aside, I have to big up Carl Froch for the comments he made in this video regarding Piers Morgan. And not only Piers Morgan, but the hysterical, irrational, ignorant, cognitive dissonant type people who Piers Morgan appeals to. So I have to big Carl Froch up for what he said regarding Morgan. I also have to big up Adam Booth I have to big up Josh Taylor. I have to big up Terence Crawford. I have to big up Dave Caldwell, especially Dave Caldwell. I also want to big up Frank Buglioni. All of these men have proven themselves to be real stand-up guys at a crucial time when it really matters. So big all those guys up. Anyway, catch you on the next one. I'm out.